On today's webinar, we're going to be tackling a big topic based on a book written by our presenters, The Content Formula, Calculate the ROI of Content Marketing and Never Waste Money Again. So my name is Liam Maroney, and I'm the Demand Generation Manager here at NewsCred, and I'll be moderating today's webinar for you. So for those of you not familiar with us, NewsCred is the leading content marketing platform, and we enable brands to easily manage content creation, distribution, and measurement across channels, teams, and global markets, all on a single platform. So we also have great content marketing resources on our blog and on our academy, so be sure to check those out at newscred.com. So today we have two speakers who couldn't be more qualified to talk about the topic of content marketing ROI. We have Michael Brenner, CEO of Marketing Insider Group, and Liz Bedor, Content Marketing Strategist for NewsCred. Liz and Michael spend their careers talking to marketers about their content marketing challenges and researching the latest best practices, case studies, and stats for their respective blogs. And this year they put their heads together to write and publish a book called The Content Formula, Calculate the ROI of Content Marketing and Never Waste Money Again. You can follow Michael and Liz on Twitter at BrennerMichael and at Liz Bedor. So just to get some quick housekeeping tips, the webinar is set to last about 45 minutes, and at the end we'll be taking some of your questions. So if you want to ask a question, feel free to do so at any stage during the webinar, and we'll bring them up at the end. And of course, don't forget to join the conversation on Twitter using the hashtag ThinkContent and the handle @NewsCred. So now that we've gotten the logistics out of the way, I'm delighted to turn the webinar over to the first of your hosts, Michael Brenner.
Thanks so much, Liam, and hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. And I first just want to say thank you for joining. The book, The Content Formula itself, was really the culmination, and with all due credit to many of you who attended, maybe have attended, a content marketing ROI webinar that we hosted here at NewsCred back in the summer of last year. And I have to give credit as well to Liz, who did the bulk of putting about 220 slides and a large number of mathematical calculations to help any brand define the ROI of their content marketing and never waste money again. On that webinar, we had over 1,000 participants. We had almost 1,600 people sign up. We had almost 1,000 or more than 1,000 people actually attend the webinar. And from that, we had a large number of questions, dozens and dozens of questions, but we had almost a dozen people mention that the webinar was extremely practical and helpful, and they suggested that we write a book. And so we took them at their suggestion and turned those 220 slides into the Content Formula, which at one point reached bestseller status in the marketing category on Amazon. So if you haven't read it or checked it out, please go to Amazon.com and you can buy the book in both paperback, Kindle, as well as Audible version, so you can take it on the road if you'd like. So without further ado, I want to jump into essentially an executive summary of the book itself, and we'll get into some of the calculations. Liz is going to kind of take the second half of this presentation and walk you through some of those practical calculations that we summarized in the book. But first, I want to get started and really set the stage. And kind of ask you to think about what is marketing. And I've posed this question many times before. I started by asking myself this question when I entered into the marketing function out of a sales role. And I was kind of surprised at the answer that I gave myself. I asked my mom, I asked my friends who weren't in either marketing or business roles, and almost unanimously, people that you ask this question, what is marketing, they think of promotion. They think of these sort of flashing banners and logos that you might find here at the picture you can see of Times Square in New York. And so, unfortunately, marketing has a marketing problem. We, as a society, think of marketing as interruption. We think of marketing as pure promotion, selfish brand-led promotion. And so when we talk about the question of marketing ROI overall, one of the things when I get this question that I love to ask, especially CMOs and especially at large companies, and I'm picking on the New England Patriots, and for any of you Patriot fans out there, I'm very sorry for your loss, although not really. I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan. But what's the ROI of putting your logo on a stadium? And so I love to pose this question not in a challenging way, although the sarcasm probably sneaks through. But the point is, what is the ROI of those kinds of traditional promotional marketing tactics that most of our brands employ, right? What's the ROI of your logo on the stadium? And you can ask that question of Gillette, but you can also ask that question of Alex and Annie and SBLI, I don't even know what that is, and Visa and Cross Insurance, right, and Bank of America, who each have different treatments of their logo on the billboard here on the big screen in Gillette Stadium. What's the ROI of a logo? And hopefully you can see this animated GIF on a speeding NASCAR race that's going 200 miles an hour, and in this case, unfortunately, ends up in a crash. And so, if you just looked at the first loop and look away, can you recall any of the logos that you saw on any of these cars? And so, again, it poses the question: what is the ROI? And of course, this golfer is very happy to have the name of a company on his hat because he's getting paid a lot of money. But would you have noticed it if I hadn't brought it up to your attention? So what's the ROI of your logo on a stadium, or a car going 200 miles an hour, or a golfer? So let's talk about banners. This here is actually a bad image. Unfortunately, there are no good images of the very first banner that was ever displayed on a website. Is actually an AT&T sponsored banner. And they were posing this question back in the early days of the web, have you ever clicked here? Have you ever clicked your mouse right here? You will. And what's amazing is that the click-through rate of this banner ad was 44%. So in 1994, the commercial web was just about a year old, and the first banner was launched in 1994, just a year later, with a 44% click-through rate. And then, as you know, we saw very quickly within a year of that first banner, banners started to propagate across the web on every single website and in just about every web and digital experience. And we're all now just so used to not just seeing banner ads, but unfortunately this is a heat map of a number of websites. And what you can see is that this proliferation of interruption-based banner ad techniques on websites have caused us to simply ignore. We don't even look at the space on the right-hand side on many websites. There was also a study done in the UK about a year and a half ago of 1,200 college students in the United Kingdom, and they were given about 3 minutes. They were asked to just browse the web for a little while, and then they were sat down with a researcher and they said, okay, do you recall any branding that showed up on any of the websites that you just sort of casually browsed around? And not a single one of them could recall one of the banners that they had seen. So what we have done, based on this traditional view, this promotional view of marketing, is we have forced the consumers, we've forced all of us to ignore promotion. And so this is why we start talking about content marketing. This is why content marketing has become the buzzword that it is, and it's why it's become so important in this world, because content marketing is essentially trying to create the stuff that we are interested in looking at on the web, as opposed to interrupting the stuff that we are interested in on the web. So okay, let's get to it, right? What's the ROI of content marketing? Well, unfortunately, ROI is a math problem. And so again, I apologize if the sarcasm is seeping through, but in order to understand the return on investment, you have to understand both the return and the investment. And so, again, what's the ROI of your logo on the stadium? Well, do you know the ROI of your marketing overall? And that's one of the first questions I think it's important for each of us to understand and to ask ourselves inside our business. Great. Thank you, Liam, for turning off the beep. So hopefully now we can proceed without interruption as well. And so again, math ahead, right? So big warning. This is the great click-through rate decline. And you can see that from 2000. And again, imagine this chart on the left-hand side was at 44% in 1994. And you can see by 2000 we were already around 10%. So we still enjoyed double-digit click-through rates on banner ads up until about the year 2000. And then you can see a massive cliff, a massive steep decline in click-through rates. And now we know, right? We know that the chances of someone clicking on our banner ad, and you may have heard us make this joke before, but the chances of someone clicking on one of your digital display banner ads you have a better chance of being struck by lightning, giving birth to twins, not just being in, but surviving a plane crash and winning a Powerball. And I'm not talking about the $100 billion Powerball jackpot. I'm talking about the $15 million ones that they start out with. So the chances of us generating return on investment from digital display banner ads is extremely low. And of course, this is not true for all industries. It's not true for all products. If you're selling healthcare supplements, then you might have a shot at getting folks to click to buy on your banner ads. But for the majority of us, especially in the B2B market, for the majority of us, the traditional promotional advertising simply doesn't work. I once called this the most important chart in marketing, and it's not because I think it's a happy thing, and I certainly am not rooting against newspapers. I'm a former paper boy and a former daily reader of print newspapers, but just look at this massive decline in advertising revenue that has occurred with newspapers. And what's interesting is that, the web kicked off again in 1993, the first web browser. And there was still an actual increase in newspaper ad revenue for a good almost decade after that point. And then we started to see with this interruption-based advertising that occurs across every channel that we consume content on, we started to see consumers tune out and advertising followed. And this is true for every channel, just about every channel that we consume content in. And so why? Why is this happening? And so it goes back to this question I asked in the beginning. What is marketing? If marketing is just promotion, if all we do is say, hey, take a moment and celebrate my brand, my business, and what I'm good at and why you should buy from us, if that's all marketing is, well, I would challenge you to say that we can do better. The cause of the problem, the reason marketing has a marketing problem, is because we do too much self-promotion. And so we need to put our customers at the center. So how do we do that? And so again, we're going to talk about how do we generate a return on investment in the kinds of content marketing techniques that we're all trying to employ. So we need to stop interrupting what people are interested in and give people or be what people are interested in. Create the kinds of content that people want to read and that people want to share. I love this quote from Ann Handley, take your brand out of the story and make your customers the hero. It sounds so simple, and yet it's so difficult for many of us. And our simple definition of content marketing, if you think about a simple Venn diagram here, you've got two circles. On the left-hand side is what we typically produce as companies, and on the right is what customers want. And so content marketing is the overlap of those two things, right? It's not to say that we're going to talk about, we're certainly not going to say I'm great, right? That's all the stuff that consumers ignore. And I'm not here to say that we should just be talking about kittens and puppies and princesses. There is an overlap between the thing that your company is an expert at and the kinds of value that it can provide for your customers. Unfortunately, that requires empathy. And so one time somebody asked me the question, how do you explain the importance of empathy to executives who don't have any, right? And so I'm sure some of you are facing that similar problem. And so the answer is you've got to show them the ROI. And so that's why we wrote this book. And so we're going to get into a little bit about how to do that. The promise of content marketing, and this gets to the ROI question, it's to earn your audience, not necessarily for free with some small investment, versus the interruption of trying to get them to buy from you, right? So it's to earn your audience versus trying to buy reach and frequency. It's to get engagement when you're getting reach and frequency. The importance of engagement is so key to understanding the ROI of content marketing. So marketers need measures, things that have quantifiable value that you can take to the bank. You need to be able to show the return on investment in a way that an executive who maybe isn't in marketing, certainly a CFO, a CEO, and a COO, so that marketing has a strategic seat at the table, right? We provide value for the business, and the way to do that is to focus on delivering customer value. So we hear lots of questions about content marketing all over the place. What is content marketing? How can I create a viral video? My favorite question. Is it okay to sell in my content marketing? The answer is no. What are the factors of success with content marketing? What does great content marketing look like? What is the cost of content marketing? And on and on and on. We hear lots and lots of questions. And yet, the one question we hear more than any other is how do we calculate the ROI of content marketing? And so that's what we're going to address. It's what we addressed in the book. And so we did this in 3 ways. And the first one is you've got to build the business case, right? You can't just jump to the calculation. You have to define the reason why content marketing is important for your business. So you have to build the business case. You have to find the budget. It's not to ask for an incremental budget. We'll talk about how to find budget from existing resources and then measure results. So first, let's talk about building the business case. And I love this this GIF from Home Alone. Unfortunately, as marketers, we're used to eating junk and watching rubbish, right? And so this is actually really apropos because in this GIF, you see a wonderful product placement by Frito-Lay and Pepsi. And so this is how I think we are, many of us are sort of fat cats in marketing, especially on the consumer side. I think we see the base of power for many CMOs is on their advertising budget. And so we've gotten used to this comfortable position of eating junk and watching rubbish. But we're grown-ups now. The world has changed. We know as consumers that advertising and promotion are the things that we're tuning out in every channel where it's possible. We have DVRs to skip commercials. We have ad blockers now, which are becoming a strong force and really hurting the world of online publishers as well. And so as grown-ups, we have grown-up problems, and so we need to face them head on. And so that's what we're going to talk about. So how do you build the business case for content marketing? You need to talk about things like sales, things like business value, things like revenue, things like return, and things like retention, the kinds of things that your CEO is talking about. So you need to build a business case using the words and the terms that CEOs understand. So we know that the world has changed. We know that the buyer journey has changed. We live in a world of self-directed content discovery where buyers are doing all the information gathering that they need on their own and then ultimately coming to you largely through your website and your sales team and asking for a contract and a price. And so not exactly the relationship selling approach that we would all hope would occur. So how do you build the business case for content marketing? In a very simple statement, the business case for content marketing for any brand is to reach, engage, and convert buyers you would have never reached if you didn't do content marketing. So if all you do is interruption-based promotion of your brand that 99.9% of all consumers tune out, then you're missing a large portion of the audience. And maybe you can even show the ROI of digital display. But the point of content marketing is to reach, engage, and convert buyers who you would have never seen if all you did was promote your brand. Reach, engage, and convert buyers you would have never seen. Another way to think about this is that the world, the size of the audience of people that are asking early stage thought leadership type questions. For NewsCred, it's something like, what is content marketing? 10 to 3,000 times more people are asking that question every single day of their Google web browser. And yet, for every one person that's looking for a tool that can help with content marketing. And there's 2 to 10 times more people than that one asking or looking for tools, just looking to understand how do you succeed, or why is it important, or what are the best practices in content marketing. And so in order to achieve success in content marketing, to show that ROI, you need to publish every single day the answer to the customer questions that you know they're asking. And then the content needs to be relevant and related to the volume of searches. One way to look at this is to go to your web analytics and navigate down, and we'll show you how to do this, to the number of web queries or searches that you're getting on your website, on your corporate domain, from unbranded search traffic. What we found that for most websites, for most companies, the answer to that question is less than 1%. At one company, we saw it was 1 in 10,000, less than 1.1% of their web traffic was coming from people who didn't already know who they were. So people typing, what is content marketing, or what is your product solution category? Only 0.1% in this example of people typing that search query. Remember, there was a much larger volume of people making that search. Very few of them are finding their way to your website. Is it important? Is SEO still important? Absolutely. So 70% of all clicks on your web browser happen in organic search results, not paid. If you only do paid, you're only going to see 30% of the traffic. And so SEO is still important. Ranking for organic search is still important. Organic search is responsible for 64% of all web traffic. Only 2% of users click to the second page. Only 18% of users click on the first organic listing. So being an authority on the topic for which you know the most about is still really important. And so type in your product category into Google. Do you rank for position 1, 2, or 3? And if you're not, then you have an opportunity to build the business case around reaching, engaging, and converting new buyers to your business, buyers you would have never reached. And so imagine, I'm going to give you a couple of quick imagine statements. Imagine that you owned a category URL like makeup.com owned by L'Oreal. So imagine that your product category.com is something that your brand owns and can monetize. Imagine that you own the target audience, like Adobe CMO.com, right? So they're focused on the CMO persona, and they own a website, literally the domain name, the URL that's focused on that target persona. Imagine that you're a top source in your industry, like NewsCred's client, Cleveland Clinic, a top source for healthcare information. They get more than 2 million visitors per month. They're so successful with their content marketing efforts that they have provided and proven ROI. And you can look at the bottom, they're selling ads. They're selling ads on their site, and they're showing a positive return. They're getting revenue into their business based on a content marketing approach. And so you too can imagine what that would be like if you were a top source in your industry. And then the sort of everyone's favorite example of content marketing, American Express Open Forum, and it's everyone's favorite example because they have proven that content marketing works. It's the largest source of new leads for their small business division, acting purely like a publisher, creating content that people want, acting like a publisher, publishing every single day on how they can provide insights, inspiration, and connections to help their small business customers grow their business. So purely customer-focused mission statement. All right, and so if you're one of those brands, you're doing this dance. Unfortunately for many of us, we're not in that position. So we have to build the business case to get there. The second step is, okay, we need to find the budget. I remember when I was at SAP, we were given a challenge, and the challenge was marketing needs to contribute to the overall revenue of the business at a 10% higher rate every single year for 5 years on a flat budget. How do you provide a higher contribution to the business from your marketing programs on a flat budget? And the way to do that is to focus on the programs that work. We know that inbound leads, HubSpot research, we know that inbound leads are 66% more effective, 66% lower cost than promotional or outbound marketing techniques. And so the way to find the budget is to look at underperforming assets. Starting with a content audit. This is so simple, and so many brands don't take the time and make the investment in looking at what content they create that never gets used at all. It's not content that doesn't perform, but what content gets created and never used. So according to Serious Decisions, this is 60 to 70% of all of the content your organization creates never gets used. According to eConsultancy, that's a $50 billion opportunity in B2B, and you can easily double that to say it's a $100 billion opportunity around the world. So what we're saying is you can provide ROI just by stopping the production of content that never gets used. So how do you calculate the cost of unused content? You look at the current content production costs, you subtract out the amount that doesn't get used, and then you can identify how much your organization is wasting on unused content. Now, that's actually relatively easy to get to. The harder part is to then convince the folks that are creating content that never gets used, or to convince the folks that are asking your team to create content that never gets used to stop making that request or making those demands upon the marketing organization. So the responsibility is on us. The responsibility is on us to do this math and present that business case. When you do that, you can find the budget. And so I was having an actual Twitter debate with someone earlier today who said that paid ads are content marketing. And the point I was making to him is that paid ads are the things, if you remember the heat map, that we don't look at anymore. Only 30%, and that number is declining every single year, of all web traffic goes to paid ads. And so imagine if you could show up number one here like Amazon does for the answer, what is cloud computing? And imagine all the money. So if you just assume $2 per click, you can then multiply that $2 per click on every organic search visit that you receive, and you can slowly and pretty quickly actually start to see and develop the picture for how to build the return on content marketing. So where do you find the budget? You look at the kinds of things that you're already spending money on and see if you can drive free organic search traffic to your website. And so you have to reallocate the budget, right? So reallocate the budget from low-performing marketing programs. Suggestion that maybe advertising is one of them. Again, this is not an attack on advertising, but we certainly understand that it can work to drive awareness of brands that maybe don't have that awareness. I love to say that advertising is great for brands that can afford it. But look at these numbers, these sobering facts, right? We've already talked about how banners, and my favorite line is banners have 99 problems and a click ain't one, because 99.99% of us ignore them completely. The average click-through rate of a display ad is 0.1%. Only 8% of Internet users account for 85% of all clicks. And most of them, or some of them at least, aren't even humans. It's been proven. 50% of all clicks on mobile ads are completely accidental. And so when you add all that up, even though 0.1% are coming from bots or coming accidentally. So another simple trick, go into your CRM, whichever CRM system you use, look at or run an ROI report, and rank from low to high. One of the brands that we worked with, we found that more than 50% of the programs that they had in their CRM system, which had a goal of driving leads, didn't only not have leads, but they had zero engagement whatsoever. So they created a marketing program, they launched the marketing program, and it produced zero engagement and zero leads. And so very simply, go into your own CRM report or into your own CRM system, run an ROI report, rank it from low to high, and then target those programs that aren't producing any return and reallocate that investment into content marketing. Content marketing doesn't require additional investment. Quick case study from my time at SAP, and again, it's not a bashing of advertising. I actually formed a partnership with our advertising team in order to fund content marketing, and what we found was that SAP was running lots of ads, and they were using agency resources to build landing pages. Those landing pages were only getting traffic from paid advertising. The traffic coming to those advertising pages was bouncing at a 99.5% rate. There was no organic search traffic. There was zero social shares. And so I asked them for half of the budget. Give me half of the budget you spend on paid advertising landing pages, and let's use that to build a content marketing platform. And instead of a 99.5% bounce rate, we're going to get an 80% bounce rate or better. And instead of getting zero organic search traffic, I committed to 50% of the traffic would come from organic search. And then instead of zero shares from social, we're going to see at least 10% of the traffic coming from social shares and social engagement. And so, again, think about the folks around your organization that have budget and maybe have underperforming marketing programs, generally in the promotional space, and then you can slowly start to see the return on investment. And so we basically took a $200,000 budget and took half of that money invested in content marketing. So we had ROI. We saved the company $100,000 the day that we launched our program. So we had basically a 100% ROI on content marketing before we even launched. And over the course of the year, we had more than 1 million organic visitors to the site. We had over 10,000 subscribers, and we could value those subscribers. We had over 1,000 leads that we could value, again, looking at an average cost per lead. So reach, engagement, and leads that SAP would have never seen if they didn't make that smart investment and save $100,000 in the process of investing in content marketing. And so I'm going to finish up and then pass it over to Liz here. But one final quote that I love from Beth Comstock, the former CMO, she's now leading one of their divisions and really rooting her on as an executive who really understands marketing. And one of the few examples of a CMO who made her way into the executive ranks of a large corporation. She talked about the ROI of content marketing in this way. We shifted investment from advertising to content marketing so we could shout louder than we spend. So she's still talking in terms of advertising and awareness. But the point was that what they found was that by telling stories, they were able to reach people that were more engaged with their brand at a lower cost. So again, it's not to say that you should stop advertising. It's really to say that if you shift some of your budget from current promotional activities into content marketing, you can prove a return on investment in content marketing.
Great, thanks, Michael. And now this is a section that you've all been waiting for, getting into the real meat here of digging through the numbers and actually finding the value of your content marketing. So now we're going to dive into measuring those results. Another great example of a marketing executive who really understands the value of content marketing is Julie Fleischer here from Kraft Foods. So she says content marketing ROI is 4 times our traditional marketing spend. So I think every marketer should be aspirational to this type of ROI for their content marketing. And I also like that this quote really emphasizes the importance of benchmarking content marketing ROI not to other companies in your space and in your industry, but also looking at benchmarking that within your own organization against other different marketing programs. So when you think about content marketing ROI, Michael mentioned this a few slides back, but really building your business case. So all of our clients, we always have them identify what is the purpose of your business case, what do your executives really care about, what does your CMO really care about. So we typically present them with these 4 business cases. So are you trying to reach new prospects? Are you trying to engage your prospects? Are you trying to convert them? Or are you trying to retain them? And the typical answer that we always get is, well, we're trying to do all 4. When you think about your business case, however, you need to realize that each of these happen in sequential order. So you can't engage new prospects if you haven't reached them in the first place, and you can't convert your prospects if they're not engaged with your brand, and then you can't retain any prospects you've converted if you haven't converted them in the first place. So really think about where is your brand within this journey and what really makes sense for you the most. So when we're thinking about reach, so this is really heavily weighted on SEO. So you want to be looking at your paid versus your organic search traffic, your unbranded search traffic, your organic search share of voice. So really how much of the pie does your brand own in that conversation of your product offering? Second, you're looking at engage. So this is probably a lot of the metrics that most of us are used to looking at. So a lot of Google Analytics type of metrics. So time on site, bounce rate, social shares. So how are people interacting? How are they engaging with your content? Are they spending a sufficient amount of time on there, or are they coming to your site and leaving right away? Then looking at convert. So are you actually driving a business value? Are actually people buying your prospects due to the content that they're consuming? So how many leads are you generating? How much is it costing your company to convert those leads compared to other programs? How many subscribers are you getting? And what are other ways that you're tracking conversions? So every company, every industry is different in how they measure conversion. So really it's important to understand what does a conversion mean to your brand. And then finally retain. So are you using content marketing to improve the retention rate of your customers, or are you using it to upsell and grow the accounts that you currently have? And then the final one that is Michael and my favorite KPI for content marketing is subscriptions, which I think really can be applied to all of these different business cases. So if you're generating subscriptions, you're getting people to grant you access to their inbox, and with that they're allowing you to market to them throughout the entire funnel. So really focus on that throughout every single business case. So looking at some of the reach KPIs. So this is just a little snapshot into some of the formulas that we dig into in the book, and then I'm going to go through an example for each of these. So talking about the value of your organic search. So again, Michael mentioned this earlier, talking about how much are you spending in paid promotion, so paid AdWords, those banner ads on the side that no one's clicking on. So how much are you spending in that budget? Looking at that compared to the organic search traffic that you're getting, and then dividing that by the search traffic that you're earning by spending all that money on those banner ads. The second thing to look at is the value of this unbranded search traffic. So the most important piece of SEO that I always encourage our clients to look at is taking your brand out of the keyword. So hopefully NewsCred, for example, would rank #1 or very highly for every search that would include NewsCred within it. What really matters is, are we ranking really highly for content marketing software, content marketing ROI, things that are included in our space but not necessarily including our keywords. And third, the value of achieving digital fair share. So how much of the conversation are you owning here? So comparing the online share of organic search that you have and looking at how that compares to your market share. So for example, if a brand has 50% of the organic search share for a certain set of keywords, and they're only having about 20% of their market share, there's a gap there and something needs to be adjusted. So the example that I'm going to walk through is paid versus organic search traffic. And this can be calculated the same way with the unbranded organic search traffic versus paid. You just need to filter out your keywords. So I'll walk through this example really quickly. So the way that we measure this is through Google Analytics. So the way that we do this is going into acquisition, because first of all we want to understand how people are finding their way to your website. So going to acquisition, then going into campaigns, and then organic keywords. So as you can see here, we have paid keywords, organic keywords, and then your cost analysis. So really want to make sure that this is the organic traffic that we're getting. So this is the page that we'll get to. So for this example, we have a brand that's really focused on dance shoes. It's raspberry dance shoes, for example. So looking at this, we see that our site has received about 360 visits of organic search here, which totals about 25% of our traffic. I also want to note that this is an older screenshot of Google Analytics, so we're not able to see the keywords anymore, but it's really just the numbers that we need to be focused on, and that is still visible in Google Analytics today. So taking a look at that, and then we want to compare that to how much we're spending in paid keywords. So for this example, let's say that we have a $100,000 budget, and that generates about 1 million visits in paid AdWords. So we want to take that 100,000 that we've earned for that 1 million different search terms and see what the comparable amount is for that 360,000 organic. So the way that we do that is we take this 100,000, multiply that by this 360,000, and divide it by that million. So when we do that, we can value the organic traffic that we've earned instead of paid for at $33,000. So the next business case that we want to look at is engagement. So this is how people are really interacting with your brand, interacting with your content once they come to your site. So here we want to talk about the value of repeat visitors, so people who are choosing to return to your site after their initial visit. And then also the value of subscribers, so people who again have opted into receiving your content on a regular basis, wanting to learn more about your brand, obviously thinking that the content that you're providing them is valuable. So the example that we're going to walk through is how to calculate the value of repeat visitors. So the way that we do this is looking at the repeat visitor ratio. And this measures the percentage of visitors who return to your site after that initial visit during some specific time period. So you want to adjust this accordingly, A/B test. So maybe you want to track this on a monthly basis. Maybe you want to track it on a bi-weekly basis or 6 months or whatever, as long as you define that specific period of time. So for this example, let's say that you got 4,000 visitors in a month and 800 were repeat visitors. So your repeat visitor ratio for this example then is 20%. So in order for us to actually tie a dollar value to this return visitor ratio, we need to look at the average amount you're spending in that advertising to drive that net new traffic. So how much are you spending on paid AdWords? How much are you spending on paid social posts? So for this example, let's say that you're spending $5,000 a month on advertising to drive new visitors. So going back to the numbers that we had before, if 80% of your visitors are net new, you're spending an average of $1.56 per visitor. So we find that by taking that $5,000 that we're spending each month, divided by the 3,200 new visitors that we have to get that $1.56. So taking that finding, we then want to apply that to the value of our 800 visitors. So all we have to do then is take that $800 and multiply that by that $1.56. And then we're able to value our repeat visitors at $1,250 per month. And the reason that we're able to value them that way is because we've now earned their attention and they're coming back to us voluntarily rather than us having to spend that money to get them to return. So we're really saving the company money, saving our advertising budget money by converting those people into having them come back. And one thing to note, so while you do want to increase your percentage of repeat visitors, you also want to increase the total number of visitors. So if, going back to our example, if our total number of visitors had stayed at that 4,000 and our repeat visitor ratio just kept creeping up, we would just be talking to the same people. So you'll be preaching to the same choir if you don't increase that total number of visitors. So it's kind of an ebb and flow here. So you definitely want to increase that total number of visitors. I think 20–25% is usually a good benchmark for repeat visitors. So you just want to make sure that you're staying consistently. Both of those lines on your chart would be going up and to the right together. And then the next business case is conversion. So this is really probably the most important business case that we see for a lot of executives. They're really wanting to see, how is this actually driving tangible value to my business? How is it helping us sell more of our products? So a couple ways that you can do this is looking at your content marketing costs divided by the content marketing leads that that's generating. The second way is looking again into your own organization and comparing content marketing costs and the efficiency of those costs generating leads and comparing that to other marketing programs. So for example, you have events or any other sort of demand gen. Then looking at the content marketing leads, taking that compared to the content marketing conversion rate, and then the average sale price. And then finally the average marketing lead sales divided by the number of marketing leads and multiplying that by the content marketing lead percentage. So the example that we're going to walk through of this is how to calculate the value of the cost per lead. So for this example, we've created two pieces of content. So we have an ROI guide and a strategy guide. And I love this example because I think it includes a piece that a lot of marketers forget, which is the distribution. So for the ROI guide, we spent $3,000 to create it and $10,000 to distribute it. And this is the part that everyone forgets. For the strategy guide, we also spent $3,000 to create, but then we spent another $20,000 to distribute it. So the total cost to create and distribute each of these is $13,000 and $23,000. Also just want to call out, the creation that can include anything from your agency fees to your salary, everything that went into creating that, and then also wanting to include that distribution cost into the total cost. So now that we know how much our content costs to create and distribute, we want to look at how it did in terms of lead generation to calculate the cost per qualified lead. So let's say for this example, each of these ROI guides were gated. So someone had to give us their email or some sort of information in order to download it. So that's really how we're capturing this lead. So for this example, the ROI guide generated 550 leads and the strategy guide generated 700. So that's the number of people who gave us their information and downloaded the guide. Of those leads, we've identified that 205 and 130 are actually marketing qualified leads. So that's whatever your organization qualifies as someone who is in your target audience, who you're really wanting to reach. So taking that 13,000 for the ROI guide of what it costs to create, dividing that by the marketing qualified leads that you've identified, we can say that the ROI guide costs $63 per qualified lead. We can do the same then for the strategy guide, taking that 23,000, dividing it by that 130, and we get 177 per qualified lead. And then if you're wanting to look at your whole program holistically across the board, you just want to average the two costs. So for this example, we have $63 plus 177, dividing that by 2. So obviously this is a very small sample, but if you're wanting to calculate the value for all of your gated assets, tally that all together and average the two costs. So our average total cost per lead for content marketing then is $120. So then content marketing retention. So again, there's a lot of different ways that many brands calculate retention. So these are just a couple. So the value of retention. So this could be something like content customers divided by the subscribers and comparing that to the lifetime value of your customers who read your content or don't subscribe. So really thinking of, for example, NewsCred, the customers of ours who subscribe to our newsletter and who engage with our content are hands down much more successful than those who don't. So kind of looking at how is their behavior in interacting with their content and how is that indicating their success. And then finally, revenue per content customer versus non-content customers. So are people who are interacting with your content, are they much more likely to be upsold? Are they looking to expand their accounts? Or are they much more stagnant and not looking to do any of that? So with that, I'll hand it back over to Michael to wrap us up.
Yeah, thanks so much, Liz. And she had the tough job of going through the actual calculation, so I want to just give sort of a hand over to her as well for that. But that's it. So that's the sort of overview from the content formula, which again inspired by many of you who maybe hopefully joined the webinar last June. definitely invite you to check out the book on Amazon. Just search for The Content Formula, and like I said, you can find it on paperback, in Kindle version, as well as audio. And now, hopefully, I think I'm gonna hand it over to Liam for some Q&A. And before I do, I just want to say thanks again for your time and attention. Really hope that you gained something out of this. Feel free to tweet at us with any comments or questions, and let's move on to Q&A.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you to both Liz and Michael. I wasn't kidding when I said that we were going to be tackling a really big topic today. Immediately, I'm going to tackle the biggest question that's been coming in over and over again, which is about getting the slides. You will be delighted to learn that we will be following up afterwards with both a slide share and a recording of the webinar, so you will be able to read it and consume it in your own time. So as far as questions, I think let me go in and look at some of the ones that are the most recurring. One of the ones would be for Michael, actually. I think in credit to Liz, I think the detail in her numbers was so much. There were very, very, very few questions about the actual numbers themselves. So Michael, one of the questions that came in was, what advice do you have for medium and small businesses with low budgets to start building a solid distribution strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I love the small business question, and the real answer comes in is that like I said, advertising is great for companies that can afford it, and so it's not to say that advertising can't be an effective way to reach new folks. I know somebody commented on Twitter that maybe banners are really more for awareness, and the point I think that we like to make is that for that question. If we all ignore banners, then how are you achieving awareness, right? So even at the awareness level, I think it can be difficult. Jumping into the small business question, what we found is that, and I love actually talking to small businesses about this, is that content marketing needs to be, or let's even maybe call it storytelling, needs to become a core function of the business. Content needs to be thought of like a product. And what I mean by that is almost every email that your executives and salespeople are sending out is an answer to a customer question. If you go to your product engineers and ask them, why did you create the product that we created? What problems were you trying to solve? Or if you go and ask your customers, what challenges were you facing that led you to reach out to us and look for a solution? Customer service people, and I know in small businesses sometimes there's only 2 or 3 people doing all of these jobs, but every one of you is getting questions from your current customer base. And you have to provide those answers either in the form of emails or phone calls or maybe on your website. And so the point is to start thinking about content as a product. Develop your website with the publisher mindset of publishing answers to your customer questions every single day. And the way to do that without a budget is you just got to tap into the way that your company is already answering those questions. Some of our favorite repurposing ideas is take an executive or sales presentation, turn it into a slide share, and write a blog post. Or take, like I said, go into the outbox of your executives and salespeople and take the questions that they were asked by your customers and prospects and turn them into blog posts. I love to refer people when somebody says, hey, Michael, what's the ROI of content marketing? And I love to refer people to a blog post I wrote about that exact question. And so, answer your customers' questions. Think of that. And think of the expertise that resides inside your company as an asset that you simply need to allow to be free and to be out and to be published in the world. And there are plenty of small business examples, companies that have done that from the very beginning, that have thought about how do we act and think and create or turn the expertise we have inside our company into content that can help people more broadly.
Great answer. Thank you. I have another question here actually about how do you decide what business case is best for your brand?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll take that, and if Liz wants to chime in as well. I mean, unfortunately, the answer is it really depends, and so that's why we provide, and we sort of gave you the cheat sheet really here with a few formulaic examples. But what we would recommend is start with the overall objective of your marketing programs, right? And for some companies, it's really hard, heavily focused on lead generation, and then start to look at how effective are you at generating those leads, and then work your way up the funnel, right? So think about whether you're supporting your buyer's journey at each stage of the funnel. And so the business case for every company really is different. I would say, though, that the one that always comes up, and we focus on subscribers as a metric of success for content marketing overall, But for most brands, it's in that unbranded search category that I talked about. And that's why I said, imagine that you're makeup.com. Imagine that you own a similar domain or URL. I know that the folks from makeup.com were tweeting on Twitter, so I replied that we love them and that every brand should follow their lead. So imagine the value of owning that kind of a digital property for your brand. So unbranded search and early stage search questions and being ranking for the answer to those questions is most often the easiest business case.
An interesting question here for you actually about if you were a company if you're in a marketing department and you are trying to compete for budget with something else, how would you convince your CMO or boss to move money away from something else towards content marketing?
Well, that's when you're in the tough position of having to point out the programs that aren't working. And so sometimes that means you have to create enemies. And the term that I used when I was at SAP was I never wanted to call anyone's baby ugly, because in marketing, when we create campaigns and we create programs, we burst them out like babies and we love our children and we love them to death. And we don't want to hear from anybody that our baby's ugly. And so the way I think to get around that is to try to speak in averages or generalities. Like I said, if you run that CRM report, the ROI report, and you rank programs from low to high based on number of leads or cost per lead, instead of going after those people individually, maybe try to bucket those things into general terms so you're not actually attacking a colleague. It's a tricky thing, though, I will say. I mean, if you're pointing at ugly babies, you have to be sure not to offend the parents. And so how do you do that is it can be tricky and can be somewhat political. So, if you do a content audit and you find that there's an average amount of content that never gets used, that's one way to get around it, like I said. Or try to bucket certain types of programs like banner spend. And again, if you can make friends with the advertising team and with some of the more traditional promotional folks and show them that you can support their efforts by, instead of sending them to landing pages that your customers are going to bounce from immediately, send them to a site that acts more like a publisher site and then try to drive them in a more soft way to conversion.
That was a great answer. I think we're running close on time, so I think we're probably going to leave it there. There were a lot of other questions, and what we'll do is we'll try and follow up afterwards, and I would encourage anyone to try and continue the conversation on Twitter with NewsCred and with Michael and Liz. So I just want to thank everyone who took the time to join us today. We'll be following up afterwards, as I said, with both a presentation and a recording of the webinar as well. I would strongly encourage everyone here to go and look for Michael and Liz's book because it is superb. And if you do want to learn more, I would also encourage you to check out our blog and to check out the NewsCred Academy for some great insights. So visit newscred.com and take a look for the links. And thank you to everyone for joining us today.